1 to 4 family contract, paragraph 10, possession. So specifically paragraph 10A, buyer's possession. So the seller shall, that means they have to deliver possession of the property in its present or required condition, ordinary wear and tear accepted. So let's pause there. So present condition, meaning the seller is going to turn the property over to the buyer, the condition it was in when it was contracted. Things could happen in between, so unless both parties agree for the property condition to change during that time, it has to be delivered in the same condition it was when the property was contracted. Of course, ordinary wear and tear accepted. So dirty light switches or something like that, dust on the chandelier, that's going to be accepted. Make sure that there's an understanding from the seller and the buyer, right? Make sure the seller knows the house, all the trash has to be removed and it has to be in a broom swept condition, right? You can't leave trash behind. You can't leave old furniture behind. All that has to be removed because the buyer is going to expect it in a broom swept condition. Not necessarily a deep clean, but vacuumed, swept, counters wiped down. Now, if you have doubts, you need to put in special provisions, the expectation of how the property is going to be delivered. So talk with your buyer about that. Now, because delivery of possession is either going to be upon closing and funding, meaning when it closes, the buyer signs and the seller signs, and then later on that day it funds, or the next day it funds, meaning the title company has released the funds. That's when the buyer can take possession, not before. Okay. And that's when the seller will deliver possession, or according to a temporary residential lease. So TREC has 2 residential leases, temporary residential leases, which will allow the buyer to move in before closing or the seller to stay after closing. If that's going to happen, if the buyer's going to move in before or the seller's going to stay after, talk to the insurance company, because the seller's insurance is for the owner-occupied insurance. If they're no longer going to be living there, they might need to get a rider or change their policy or find out what the policy is for somebody else moving into the property for a few days. You might lose coverage, okay? Make sure you do that. If the seller's going to stay, buyer, talk to your insurance company. Make sure that they're covered for that time period, okay? And that's what this is talking about right here. If you don't do that, if you don't have that talk with them, there could be an issue. If your seller is selling a vacant property, make sure they're talking to their insurance company and making sure they have proper coverage in that case as well. Okay. Right. So just for your records, here's the buyer's temporary residential lease, and here's the seller's temporary residential lease. These are form numbers TXR 1910 and TXR 1911. And these are the forms that would be used here if it was according to a temporary residential lease. We'll go through those leases at another time, but those are the leases that would be required.